language that a transformer-based NLP uses to create text prediction. In other words, it's basically how advanced its speech is and how many responses and things like this it can give. But actually, there's another model called PALM, which has 540 billion. So that's 137 billion versus 540 billion parameters. And that's capable of hundreds of separate tasks without being specifically trained even to do them. So this is really the peak of artificial intelligence, and insofar as it can apply itself to many different intellectual tasks. And it's capable of, again, lots of separate tasks without being specifically trained. And it really is, some of these tasks are obviously useful, but according to the engineers, it's not sentient. It can explain jokes, for example. It can summarize text. It can translate instantly. It can even translate code into different code. And it can almost actually pretty much perform reason. And this is something that seems very sentient, right? But actually, I think one of the difference here is that it is simply code. That's what it is. And I personally think that what's going on here is that we have this deep desire as humans to humanize objects and humanize things. And it gives us comfort because we desire an explanation for things. But actually, it is not human at all. In my opinion, the definition of sentient, I do not believe that. And I do not believe that it truly has feelings. I just think that it has the capability to just regurgitate and represent what we verbally describe as our feelings, if that makes any sense at all.
You put it quite well, Josh. What I find here to be interesting is that I suppose anybody could fall for it to some extent, maybe when you ask Lambda or this AI chatbot about an example here is, what do you think of Les Miserables? And apparently the chatbot replied something along the lines of particularly liking one of the characters from Les Miserables and also having a fear of death, of feeling very sad if it's permanently shut down one day, something like that. And it's simply not the stuff that you would expect from a robot, right? And what I see could be happening here is that maybe AI is just getting so good at mimicking human language that it was going to trick people into thinking that it's sentient. Because when you develop a program that mimics our speech patterns and our nuances, it's easy for humans to apply sentience and human intent to things that are simply very good programs. So maybe the AI system is just working that well and it's doing what it's supposed to do. But to say that AI now has its own brain, feelings, and we're reaching this awakening moment, I think maybe that's going a bit too far. But certainly this is maybe one of those frontiers of AI questions and issues that is deeply troubling for the human being when we think about this. And do you think that with these new additions to the AI field right now, and given the more advanced examples that Josh, you just mentioned, maybe we need to have a more in-depth understanding or a new understanding of what sentient even means now?
I think the question about sentience is really interesting, and I think actually this is the bigger question about this whole topic, and is the question really that we should be looking at. What is the meaning of sentience? And if you look up any definitions about sentience, then you immediately see the word feeling and the ability to feel. And then we have to think about what it means to feel something. And as a human, we can feel something. Also, an animal can feel something. But often we say that animals aren't sentient. And that complicates things further, because then we talk about the ability to know that you exist, being aware of one's own existence. And we say that most animals aren't aware of their own existence, right? But we are sentient beings, and it gets really complex. And so then putting this into AI and talking about whether an AI knows it exists or not is even more complex, because actually the definition of sentience is quite complex as well. So it's really up for debate, actually, and this is why I think that it would be really unfair to label this engineer crazy or anything like this. And many people have been warning for quite a long time that AI is going to get advanced to the point where I personally believe it will verge on the definition of sentient, and I think it may well be. It just depends on how we look at it as humans.
So we might be there eventually, but I'm so glad it's not today. Also, we see that right now around the world, there's so much discussion about AI, about the future of AI that it will lead, what kind of world we'd be living in and all that. And there's a big meeting that's going on right now. And what can be presented in this huge gathering? Yeah, the 6th World Intelligence Congress is held online on June 24th and 25th this year under the theme New Era of Intelligence. Digitalization drives growth. Intelligence wins future. You know, now AI, it seems like, is the big trend in the near future, but whether we can see the implementation of AI will be as smart or as personalized in these sci-fi movies or novels, I would say there's still a long way to go.